On this episode of Game Shack, I finally got Arcade1up's Tron after a 3-year wait. I'm going to give you guys a quick review of it, what mods you can still do to it in 2024, and what this means for Arcade1up moving forward. What lessons can they learn from what is the greatest cab they ever made? All that and more coming up next. Hey everybody, welcome on back into the Game Shack. I'm your host JDV for Evil Genius Entertainment. Thank you for stopping by, everybody. All right, man, give us a thumbs up if you dig this kind of content. It really does help the channel. Please subscribe if you haven't, and if you have, hit that notification bell. Okay, yeah, I've been waiting for this game for 3 years because $700 was just a price tag I could not afford to pay, and Tron is one of those evergreen cabs that never really has gone down in price. Maybe a couple times. I did do a video a month ago when it came briefly down in price a little bit and then went right back up to $6.99. I'm going to talk about why that is actually maybe even still a fair price 3 years later in just a second. But as we move forward, I want you guys to understand that I have already modded this cab to a certain degree. I put on new kick plate art. I have this little gizmo in front of here, and I have a new J panel with the computer going on. So as you see B-roll of this moving forward, know that I already have done some mods to it. I'm going to do a completely separate mod video down the line, but just know for now that all the mods I did I will have linked down below, so if you want to pick up the same thing. And I will have a modding video coming out probably in a couple of weeks if you are interested in putting the new mods that you can still do in 2024 on your Tron cab. Now, part of the reason why Arcade1up even bothered to do Tron in the first place is it is one of the most popular arcade games of all time. They made 20,000 plus cabs for Tron to hit the actual arcades, and that puts it right up there with the biggest selling pinball games of all time, with the biggest selling arcade games of all time. I mean, they sold an absolute truckload of Trons back in the day, so much so that flash forward 40 years and you can still pick up a Tron cab, but you're going to be looking at around $1,500 to $2,000. Here you can see a Facebook ad for one locally, and also the ad for the game I actually ended up picking up. But here, if you look at the back of the Tron game, look at all of that in there, man. I don't want to mess with any of that. You know, when you buy a arcade game that was actually used in a real arcade, you are essentially buying an antique. That Tron game now is over 40 years old. And when I finally did get it together, oh my God, the wow factor of this cab is just absolutely spectacular. And the reason for that is beyond the design of the original arcade game. You're talking about the first, and as far as I know, the only time they've ever used UV reactive paint on their cab. It's the first and only time, as far as I know, that they ever used a UV light on their cab. It's the first and only time, as far as I know, that they have a flight stick with 2 buttons that lights up from the inside the way this cab has. It's the first and only time, as far as I know, that they have a push-pull spinner that works fantastically, way better than that Gen 1 Tempest spinner. It's first and I think only time that we have a light up panel here in the front of the cab. So many firsts. I think it was the first time we had the extender piece on there to rise this thing up to over 5 feet tall. Of course, that has been used now several times now in the new deluxe design, and you can put your high scores for both Tron and Disc of Tron online. A super cool feature that does, in my opinion, really matter if you are a serious player. All of that, beautiful marquee, the whole bit, I mean, you're talking about a high water mark, in my opinion, for Arcade1up. They have never done more in any single cab than they did in this. They never pushed the boundaries of what they could do farther than what they did in this cab. The reason why 3 years going on that this cab still has legs, why this cab is still an evergreen cab, is because it has all of those things right. All of the bling is right. It looks great. It plays great. It plays the way you want it to play. It has online abilities. It has all of this stuff, right? So, okay, all that said, what can Arcade1up learn from Tron? Well, I think you can learn a couple of things. One, if you want to keep the higher prices that you're asking, give us a cab that plays well, that looks good, that goes online, and there's no major anything that you can go, well, I'd buy it, but That really does not exist in Tron. What does all that mean? To me, it means I would rather see fewer releases per year. Remember, they had 11 deluxes last year. Give us fewer releases, but make those cabs absolute standout cabs. For instance, if you are going to come out with Alien vs. Predator, do not put a 17-inch screen in there. As soon as there's a 17-inch screen in Alien vs. Predator, it's an immediate fail. It's an immediate, you don't pass the class if you come out with a 17-inch screen in Alien vs. Predator and have a 2 or 3 person joystick setup. If there's just one joystick setup, okay, then 17 works. Anything else doesn't. Give us some LEDs, give us some kind of wow, give us a thumper in it, give us something a little special to buy that cab, because otherwise I can play that right now on my ALU Gen 1. Heck, give us a 21-inch screen, really go crazy, and guess what? You'll be able to sell Alien vs. Predator 3 and 4 years down the line, just the way that they can sell Tron 3 and 4 and 5 years down the line. That game has staying power. Any other game that they put out to have staying power has got to be well thought out, well play tested, and give us a little bit of bling. So I guess the bottom line for me is that, boy, is this an amazing addition to my arcade. It's probably not a machine that you want to buy if you only have 1 or 2 cabs in your home arcade, unless you're a true Tron fanatic. But if you have 5 or 6 cabs in your home arcade, man cave, whatever setup you have, wow, is this a banger title to add. If you're interested in modding, you can do a whole bunch of soft mods to this thing that, you know, if you mess up, you can go right back to stock, no problem at all. It just has those unique controllers, the amazing looks of it, the different shape that this cab has. There's so many good things here if you want to have your home arcade look like a real arcade. Oh, a Tron is just an excellent way to do it. And lastly, I think that, yes, Arcade1up should look back in their history and look at the cabs that were successful. And Tron, to me, is an amazing success in terms of all of the different things you can do. I forgot that you could change the color of this little light bar up front. I think, just, man, everywhere I look on this cab, there's another thing to blow my mind. It's just such a great cab. A great addition to my home arcade. I'm so happy I picked it up. I think it's absolutely a buy for 600 bucks or less if you can find it for that. It's great. Arcade1up, learn from this cab. Do it again. Make less cabs and make them better, and you might see 2025. Let me know down below what you think about this cab. Is it something that you have in your collection, that you've been wanting for your collection, been sitting on the fence for? Is there any mod that I haven't seen or talked about that you know about? Let me know down below too. And lastly, is this a cab that Arcade1up should be looking at when they're trying to emulate new cabs, like, you know, Robotron, if that comes out? Is there anything to be learned from this cab that they could put on Robotron, or you know, if they put out Burger Time again, or Alien vs. Predator, or some of these other cabs that we want to see? They could do worse than to follow the lead of Tron. All right, guys, that's gonna wrap this episode up. Please give me a thumbs up on the way out door. Subscribe if you haven't already. Love each other, and until next time, I'll see you in the Game Shack. Mwah!
Be sure to visit evilgeniusentertainment.com for exclusive content, swag, casting call news, and much, much more.